The last talk of this stop on the tour, so bear with me, we'll get you out in the breeze here shortly. So as Eric said, I'm Sible. I'm a third-year PhD student with Dr. Bilo, fifth-year graduate student, and I actually did my undergrad here too. So I'm about to enter my 9th year on this campus. And I think that's a good thing because they haven't kicked me out yet. The reality is they probably keep me here as long as those tuition checks keep clearing. But I'm going to talk to you about biologicals. And there's a reason that I follow Dr. Bilo, Scott, and Eric, because what they talked about are key requisite managements that you have to have for high yields. And then you can start to think about these biological products. Another thing we haven't talked about today is pesticide management. Right? Weeds, disease, insects, they don't add yield, they take it away from us. So that's one thing we haven't talked about, but don't forget about. You have to manage your pests, and then you can do your fertilizer management, choose the right genetics, and your right row spacings and populations. Once you have that figured out for your system, now we can start looking at the next steps of biologicals. And that is the next management step. I get really excited about biologicals, but I might be biased because I'm trying to get a dissertation out of this. But I can tell you from personal experience the last couple of years, farmers and industry are excited about this too. And that's because we're really getting into the science behind them and understanding how do we get biologicals to work on our farms. Sometimes you hear the word snake oil, right? And that's because sometimes the next product comes along and we just add it to the tank at the next application asks. But if you really understand what is in that jug, how it's supposed to work for your system, then you'll start to see positive responses, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So how can we use biologicals? Dr. Bilo mentioned this, right? We can put it on seed treatment. Goes out with the planter, easy way to use this product. What about in furrow? If you have that system on your planter, right? You got the starter 1034 going out, let's add a biological to that tank with the planter. Foliar vegetative, think post-emergent herbicide application, right? You have to control those weeds. You're making that pass across the system. Maybe there's an opportunity for another product to benefit your yields. Similarly, we talk about foliar reproductive stages being your fungicide and insecticide applications. Another opportunity for another management practice with these biologicals. Here's what these can look like, right? We got the starter, the seed treatment. Panel C there, it's a little small for those in the back, but what do you know about post-emergent herbicide applications? There's still a lot of soil there that you can hit with that application spray. So maybe a biological that will work on soils can go out at this time. But at fungicide, what do we have? Full canopy. So if your biological is targeting the soil, probably doesn't belong with your fungicide pass because you can only hit the foliage. So these are just some things you have to think about when you're using biologicals. When are you putting it out? Where's the target to make sure that you're going to get the biological where it needs to be? Maybe we can put them on our dry fertilizers or crop residues. These are the future of these products, potential applications. So I still haven't really answered though. Biologicals is a generic term. What are these products? There's 3 big categories we can kind of group them into. Plant growth regulators. These are your hormone products. Think Cygen, Ascend, Radiate. Then we have beneficial microbes, which are exactly what they sound like. They're living microbes. And biostimulants. The plant growth regulators have been around a while, and they're pretty stable in the market. Not too many new ones coming to light. So for the rest of my talk, I'm going to focus on beneficial microbes and biostimulants, because these are the ones you're probably hearing about on a weekly basis. In summary, I can kind of call these the living versus the dead. And we're going to dive into these. But I've given you biologicals, beneficial microbes, biostimulants, and I really haven't told you what biologicals are, right? What is in that jug that somebody's bringing to your farm? Well, the reason I haven't quite answered that to you yet is because it's a really stressful question. I mentioned I'm in my 5th year here as a graduate student. There I am, young, excited, starting grad school. This is going to be fun, right? 4 years later, I don't know if that hair loss is because I'm older or stress of trying to answer this question. But a year later, in 2021, happy to say we're getting a hold of this concept and how these products work, and I'm happy to share that with you today. So here they are. Here are the 7 most common types of biologicals that you're probably going to see on the market. The first 3 are those beneficial microbes, and the bottom 4 are what I'll call biostimulants. We're going to very quickly, in the interest of time, go through the main thing that these different categories are going to bring to your farm, and then you can start to understand if that's what the product does, this is where I need to place it into my system. Starting with the nitrogen-fixing bacteria. These take atmospheric nitrogen out of the air and then give it to the plant in exchange for sugars. Think about your soybean crop. Many people know this with nodules and legumes. Logan Woodward's going to talk about this later, and so I'll save a lot of more information to him, so I encourage you to come back for 2 or D later. The next beneficial microbe is these phosphorus solubilizing bacteria, and they are going to increase the availability of your mineral phosphorus. We're going to focus on that. How do they do this, right? Well, what about phosphorus in soils? It's often tied to cations, and that complex is not plant usable. When we apply fertilizers, they're available early, but they can get tied up. So how do we keep that phosphorus from getting tied up? Well, we add these microbes. They're depicted there in the yellow. And they can act on that complex and release it. And that makes phosphorus available for our plants. And so the key here is this is in our soils. So if you have a phosphorus solubilizing microorganism, make sure you're going to get it to the soil where it's going to be active. The next beneficial microbe is mycorrhizal fungi. You've probably heard this referred to as AMF. And in short, these extend the root system. Scott talked about root system, and the size of that root system really controls how it gets its nutrients. We have a small root system, but it's partnering with these mycorrhizal fungi to extend that root system. Now you're going to get better access to soil, better nutrition, and water uptake. So those are the 3 beneficial microbes in a quick snapshot. And if you want to know more, we can dive into those later. And we're going to jump into biostimulants. And this is the newest category of biostimulants. These are enzymes, particularly phosphatase. Key here is they go after organic phosphorus. Phosphorus microbes, mineral phosphorus. Now we're into a different pool of organic phosphorus. How do these enzymes do that? Well, phosphorus is tied as part of organic matter. It's one of the components. And these enzymes, they go in, they grab a hold of that phosphorus on that organic matter, and they release it, making it plant available. How many of you have played Pac-Man, right? Every time that Pac-Man opens and closes its mouth, going after those white dots on the screen, think of an enzyme. Every time it opens its mouth, it's going to release that phosphorus for plant availability. We're going to sidestep from the categories a little bit and talk about biological synergy. Those beneficial microbes, they make mineral phosphorus available. And the enzymes increase organic phosphorus. So now I have 2 biologicals, 2 different phosphorus pools, and they can help supplement the crop needs in addition to your fertilizer. Or in regards to those microbes, maybe make your fertilizer stay available. So going back to our biostimulants, humic and fulvic acids, they've been around a while. The big thing that these will do is they'll chelate soil cations, making things like phosphorus available, or they're carbon loaded, and they'll feed the microbes, stimulate the microbiome, and just create an overall productive soil root zone. The last 2 categories I grouped together, those are marine extracts and sugars. They can be applied to soils or the foliage. And so the key here is knowing when you're applying it to understand what to look for in your crops. And when we apply to soil, there's a lot of carbon in there, a lot of different nitrogen compounds in those marine extracts. They're going to stimulate the microbes, improve root growth and nutrient availability. Or when we apply foliar, things like sugars and marine extracts can help mitigate stresses. And Derek Lenzen will talk to you about that at Tour D. So that's just a quick snapshot of the most 7 common types of biologicals you see on your farm. And the big thing that they're supposedly going to be working for on your farm, so you know how to fit it into your system. What's your goal? Are you looking at nitrogen or phosphorus enhancement or stress mitigation? So the beauty of biologicals is that there's a lot of versatility, but you need to know what's your goal and which one to select. And they also look pretty, right? They come in a lot of different colors, shapes, and sizes. So fun products to work with. So the crop physiology lab perspective on the biologicals. You have to understand what they do and how they work before you try it, because that's going to ensure you're placing that product for success. If I come to you with a phosphorus solubilizing microbe and say, put it out in a fungicide pass, challenge me, because that's a soil target, and you won't find the soil at that fungicide, it's all canopy, right? So know the product before you add it to the system. You're not going to replace good crop management. Still have to fertilize, still have to choose the genetics, the row spacings, and control your pests. So these are the next step to higher yields. And there may be opportunity beyond grain yields. We've seen some research where we're getting more of our fertilizer into the plants. We're being better at managing and being stewards of our nutrition. And so we look down the way towards regulatory, there might be opportunity there as well. So here's our website. I wish I could say we put all of our research on the website, but we just don't have the time. So a good portion of our research is on that website. Our contact information is there for anything else. And we know you had your choice of tours this morning. So thank you very much for choosing Tour A.